Introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Karen Gluglaw. I live in Macomb Township, Michigan, and I'm a two-time SCAD heart attack survivor. So this is my first, well, we were supposed to have our first Michigan SCADaddle here on this date. Ended up being a virtual for everybody, but we're happy to be here. I'm here with friends and family at a park off of Lake St. Clair in Michigan.
Okay, great. So can you just go ahead and tell us, I guess, what is your kind of connection with SCAD, if you don't mind?
Right. Well, I became a member of this group, nice group of people, but didn't expect to have this kind of diagnoses. But in 2014, I had my first heart attack at 41, and I didn't know I had it at that time. They said it was from spasm that I had the STEMI heart attack. But then I had another one in 2018, which then gave me the diagnosis in retrospect because I saw another tear. And because of research, I believe that's why, or in spreading awareness, that's why I got the correct diagnosis. So, but a little bit about like how things happened in 2014. I had there's heart disease in my family, my dad's side, but not until like usually later, like atherosclerotic disease. I was healthy. I'm still healthy now. I had normal blood pressure and normal cholesterol. I mean, I exercise, I eat right. So it just didn't seem right that I would be having a heart attack. It actually happened after a stressful event that occurred at my home. Unfortunately, like a phone call came in to my daughters that were 12 and 15 at the time, and they were upset with what happened on this phone call. And my daughter ran upstairs to cry, and so I ran up after her. I had heard this phone call, so it was upsetting even to me. And when I got there up the stairs, I couldn't tell her it's going to be okay. Like I couldn't get the words out. So at first, I thought I was having an anxiety attack, like I think most of us do when this happens. But then I felt this crushing feeling in my chest running up my neck and jaw. And my daughter looked at me and said, "Mom, there's something wrong with you. You know, what's wrong with you?" And I tried to tell her it was okay, but I couldn't, like I said, get the words out. So I stood up and I tried to walk around. And then my other daughter by this time seen me and I couldn't get air. And I paced the floor. Well, in the meantime, she's calling 911. I had no idea. I was kind of a blur right there, but I started sweating profusely. My 15-year-old then ran to get the neighbor as well. And the ambulance, she said it was on its way. But I just, was fearful to be in my house. So I'm sorry. Didn't want to like collapse in front of my children. My husband was up north with my other two children. I have 4 children. So I was alone with them. And like I said, my neighbor. When she saw me and she looked like alarmed, she looked scared when she saw me. And that's how I knew I was in trouble. I mean, I know for sure because I felt like this is what death feels like.
Hmm.
So I heard the ambulance in the distance and they got there and hooked me up. They said, "You're having a STEMI heart attack. We have to get you to the nearest hospital." Gave me nitro. I was able to talk a little bit after that. And when I got off the ambulance, doctors were running past me like 3 times. Some lady or a doctor was holding my EKG. And by the 3rd time she passed and she stopped at my gurney, she said, "Are you Karen Gluglaw?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I would keep running past you on this gurney because you do not look like somebody who needs to go to the trauma room." She thought like this patient was missing in the ER. I said, "No, it's me." She said, "We got to get you to the cath lab." And it was kind of a disaster in that room. They couldn't thread my catheter to get the angiogram done, but they did get it in by like the 6th time in my wrist. And they didn't know what it was. They said it was a spasm. They tried injecting it to open up the artery. It was in my widowmaker, the LAD, excuse me. And after all was said and done, I get to a recovery room and they're like, "Yeah, we don't know really why this would cause a STEMI heart attack, the spasms, but they can be so severe that could happen." So a day later, I ended up getting a blood clot in my arm. It was, like I said, it was a crazy week. I had to have an 8-inch blood clot removed from where the catheter was to save my hand. And then going forward, I just went home and not really realizing what had happened. They put me on medicine for, the blood clotting. I was on Coumadin and some other heart medicines. And they said like the blood thinners and a cholesterol pill because they're thinking, but I didn't have high cholesterol. It was very uneasy to not know why. But I went on with my busy life. I'm raising 4 kids. My youngest at the time was 5. So busy mom of 4. I just kept doing what I was always doing, eating right, exercising, hoping that would never happen again. I didn't even do cardiac rehab because it was so crazy. And then I had my gallbladder removed in 2015. And it was at that time the surgeon said, "You had a heart attack? That's crazy. I don't think you had spasms. I think you had SCAD." And he handed me a bunch of like cards. And he's like, "The reason why I know about this is because my wife had one."
Okay,
And
so during that whole the whole incident you were telling us about, they didn't diagnose SCAD at that point.
no, they
Oh
didn't.
goodness,
No,
good.
no, they had no idea. Oh, they had an idea. They said it was from spasm only, and that's it. And my arteries were completely clean. There was no plaque
Right.
evident anywhere.
And this was
So I never,
2014, was it?
yes,
Okay,
14.
okay. Thank
Like I
you.
said, in 15, I heard about SCAD, but not, unfortunately, my insurance at that time that I had was an HMO, and they didn't allow me to go to Cleveland Clinic because at that time they're like, "Oh, you should go to Cleveland," because that doctor's wife had gone there. He'd give me a doctor's name. But again, they didn't cover it. It was just like, well, no, I'm sure I'm fine. I feel good. And then it was in 2000. And I can't say it was 2018 because I had a couple other episodes in between, but then like the EKG was normal. They sent me home. So I really don't know if I had other events, very similar symptoms and stuff, but never had the angiogram. But in 18, there was no denying that I was having another STEMI heart attack. It was 9 days following I had a major neck surgery done, a fusion. So I was in this big neck brace. I was in a lot of pain that day. Probably did too much because that's what I do. But I didn't know I had SCAD. I didn't know I needed to take extra precaution on even just the stress on my body. So I went to sit down on the couch, and it was like literally, I mean, my daughter's sitting next to me, my 8-year-old, and it was like the elephant ran across the room and just took a seat on my chest. And I thought, oh my gosh. And this time it happened quicker. Like the symptoms were really quick. Like I just started sweating. I could feel, I mean, even my knees were sweating. It was weird. My legs were sweating. This cold sweat thing. Yeah, it's for real. Like you wouldn't know how to describe it until it's happening. So, my husband was with me this time, and like I said, my daughter, and he was calling 911, and I had nitroglycerin, which was helpful. But then, the EMS got there. He's trying to explain that she's already had these heart attacks, or she already had a heart attack, and they're like, "What?" And when they brought me to the hospital this time, this physician that was working in the ER that day, he said, "I just read about SCAD. I heard him talking about it, but I couldn't really pay attention. I was more worried about, really honestly dying. I thought, there's no way my heart can take this again." And the pain was just excruciating. So when they got me in the cath lab, I heard him yelling at the crew to get 2014 films up from that angiogram, which thank God I was at the same hospital. So everything was readily available, which was really saving me from, helping me with this diagnosis, I guess. And he looked at the 14 films. He said, there it was in her LAD. There was the tear. They missed it. They probably treated it as a spasm because it can be overlooked if you're not looking for it. But he went in there looking for SCAD. And then he said, and this is what's happening now. He said, you're having another, this is a SCAD heart attack. And now you're having a tear in your left circumflex artery. They tried stenting my arteries both times, but I have like tortuous, they spiral
Hmm.
arteries, and also they're really small. So each time they try to put a stent, it didn't work. It just couldn't get it in. He didn't want to obviously tear more. So also grateful that this second physician knew about SCAD. He knew not to be, in there too long and do anything crazy. So he's like, "I'm gonna treat you medically." But honestly, it was like a whirlwind. Like, how could this happen again? And what is SCAD? I got on, I couldn't use my arms at the time, but my husband was obviously Googling everything that night, and he had to come back, with kind of teary eyes. and
mm,
fearful of what would be next. So and I
yeah.
called Mayo Clinic from my hospital bed, and they got me in. I mean, I was in within, I think, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. We took a ride to Minnesota, and I was very grateful. I mean, I met Dr. Sharon Hayes, and told me, actually, they said, and this was very, I'll never forget. Gosh, I don't know why I'm trying to get, I didn't think I'd get teary. She said she'll help you live again. And that is true. She made me feel better about the diagnosis, and that, I didn't feel as alone. I'd met some survivors that online, the SCAD research page, SCAD survivor page, and there's a Michigan SCAD survivor page. So I already felt better, and I have great family support and friends that are here. Like today, they're waiting for me to start the walk or the 5K. So yeah, I'm really grateful that this has happened, the SCAD research and awareness, because I really don't think I would have known even in 2018. The doctor said literally he had just read an article from Mayo Clinic on SCAD, and thank God.
Well,
So
are you comfortable talking about kind of the emotions that you went through and some of the recovery you've gone through since?
yes, yeah, emotionally, like, see, I feel like I can talk about it a little easier without crying, but there, yeah, after the physical part, and I did do cardiac rehab, and that was hard too because you show up as this healthy, everyone healthy woman, and you're surrounded by, and I'm not nothing against people that are older than me, but you just didn't feel like you belonged in the room, and everybody had a question me why I was there, and it was okay. I wanted to educate too, but they're like, "What are you doing here?" And it's like, it just like, yes, I know I don't look like I belong here, so you just feel kind of. I did feel some pity party. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, why me? Like, why does this have to happen? But in the same respect, I said, I'm not gonna if I'm not gonna just sit and cry about it. I have to do something positive. And need to teach my children too that we're not gonna like cry about this every day. We have to get out of bed. We have to do what we have to do, and we're gonna live again. Um, but it wasn't just me, that I have to be strong even for them and my husband, because I don't want to, like, I don't know. Of course, I cried in front of them, but I have to look at their worries. Unfortunately, all four kids had to see. 2014 was my two older ones, and then in 2018 the other two. So like, why did they all have to witness this? So it was frustrating, but you can't change it. If anything, I think it makes us stronger. And I definitely think cardiac rehab helped me. I mean, it got my endurance back, and I'm still very active now. And that's why I joined this whole crew with the 5K for research, because we have to look forward. We can't look back. And I think that is key into finding more research. I advise all, or I recommend, I guess, all survivors to join the research
Right.
with Mayo Clinic.
Well, we only have a few seconds left,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
what would you recommend to somebody if this happens to them, some undefined chest pain like that?
Yeah. I like I've said before to friends, even if you're having symptoms that in women it's often different. For me, I had classic signs, but don't ignore it. Even if you thought it was gas pain, some upper GI problem, you take Tums, it doesn't relieve it, and you still feel bad. I mean, the worst thing that could happen, what, they send you home and say you need some antacid. I mean, there's no shame in it. You could save your life. Or if you notice someone else that's having this, just mention SCAD, or not SCAD. I always tell people, because I've been advised to tell people dissection. Like, don't mention like SCAD, the acronym. Just say, what about a dissection in the coronary arteries? It's called SCAD. Mention that to the EMS crew. Mention it to, if you're in the ER with somebody who's having this, so they can look, even if they just look it up or call somebody who knows about it. I feel like you can be an advocate for yourself, or even one of your loved ones, a stranger. I mean, anything you can
Right.
do to help.
That's very interesting. I've never heard that before, and that sounds like very good advice. Well, I'm sorry, we are out of time. Thank you so much, Karen.
You're welcome. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me.